The town of Moscow, Idaho, was supposed to be a safe haven, a quiet college town where students walked to class, spent weekends at local coffee shops, and lived out the best years of their lives. But on November 13th, 2022, that peace was shattered. 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were found brutally murdered in their off-campus house. The crime was so violent, so horrifying, that even seasoned detectives struggled to comprehend the scene. A desperate search for answers began. Who could have done this? And why? As the days passed, a suspect emerged, Bryan Kohberger, a criminology Ph.D. student with an unsettling fascination for crime. His arrest shocked the nation, a man who studied murder, now accused of committing one. But what really happened that night? And what eerie details make this case one of the most disturbing in recent history? It was a normal Saturday night for the victims. Kaylee and Madison spent the evening out with friends, grabbing a late-night meal before heading home. Xana and Ethan were at a fraternity party, returning to the house around 1:45 a.m. But sometime between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m., everything changed. The killer moved through the house in the dead of night, attacking swiftly, silently. Authorities believe Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were killed first. Xana had defensive wounds, meaning she fought back. Ethan likely had no time to react. On the 3rd floor, Kaylee and Madison were found together in the same bed. They were the last to be attacked. The brutality of the crime stunned investigators. And yet, for nearly 8 hours, the crime remained undiscovered. 2 other roommates were in the house that night, both surviving the attack. One of them later told police she had heard noises, whispers, crying, even footsteps. And then she saw him, a figure dressed in black wearing a mask walking past her, but she didn't call 911 right away. No one did. It wasn't until almost noon the next day that a call was finally made. By the time police arrived, the killer was long gone, and so was any immediate trace of him. No murder weapon, no obvious fingerprints, no forced entry. But this was not a random act of violence. The brutality suggested something personal. Someone had been watching, planning, waiting, and investigators were about to uncover just how deep the connection ran. Hundreds of miles away in Pullman, Washington, Bryan Kohberger continued his life as usual. He was a criminology Ph.D. student at Washington State University, just a short drive from Moscow. To his classmates, he was intense, socially awkward, obsessive about crime. He would ask bizarre, unsettling questions in class. He wanted to know what it felt like to kill. But what investigators found next was even more disturbing. Cell phone records placed Kohberger near the victim's house at least 12 times in the months leading up to the murders. 12 times. Was he stalking them, watching their routines, planning his attack? Then came the biggest clue, the white Hyundai Elantra. Surveillance cameras caught the vehicle circling the neighborhood around the time of the murders. The same type of car Kohberger drove. Police needed more. And then, they got it. A knife sheath, left behind at the crime scene. On it, a single trace of DNA. That DNA linked directly to Kohberger. It was enough for an arrest. On December 30th, 2022, police moved in. They found Kohberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. He was taken into custody without a struggle. But his reaction? Cold. Blank. As if he had already prepared for this moment. Now investigators had their suspect. But questions remained. Why did he do it? What was his connection to the victims? And had he left behind more clues than he realized? Bryan Kohberger has pleaded not guilty. His trial is set for 2025. His defense team is fighting to have the case dismissed. They argue the evidence is circumstantial, that the DNA could have been transferred, that the phone records don't prove he was inside the house. But the prosecution is confident. The DNA, the surveillance footage, the cell phone pings, they believe it all points to one conclusion. Bryan Kohberger is the killer. Yet some still have doubts. Could he have acted alone? Could there be an unknown accomplice? And what about the motive? There are theories. Some say he was obsessed with one of the victims. Others believe he wanted to commit the perfect crime, to prove he was smarter than the investigators hunting him. And then there are the eerie details. Before his arrest, Kohberger reportedly asked police, "Who else have you arrested?" as if he expected someone else to be in custody. And then there's his chilling past. Years before the murders, he posted online about feeling empty, devoid of emotion, like a ghost. Did Kohberger always have darkness inside him? Or did something push him over the edge? The trial will bring answers. But no matter the outcome, 4 young lives were stolen. Kaylee, Madison, Xana, Ethan. Their families are left searching for justice, their community forever changed, and the world still asking, why? Was this a crime of passion, a twisted experiment, or something even darker? Only one person knows the full truth. And if Bryan Kohberger is that person, he isn't talking. But one thing is certain. The town of Moscow, Idaho will never be the same again. What do you think? Is the evidence against Kohberger airtight? Or could there be a shocking twist still to come? Let us know your thoughts. And if you found this deep dive compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime investigations.